Ladies and gentlemen, we now start with our second director's panel discussion. I, Arunima Das, alongside my co-host Ayushi Banerjee, would be your host for the second director's panel. In this section of the panel discussion, the eminent directors from premier B schools across India will delve into the theme B schools as engines of India's net zero transition, building leaders, knowledge, and innovation for Viksit Bharat 2047. May I now take the privilege of inviting our esteemed directors of today's panel to kindly take their respective seats on the stage. Professor Varun Nagaraj, Dean and Professor S.P. Jain Institute of Management and Research, Mumbai. Professor Sangeeta Sahani, Dean, Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur. Professor Subir Verma, Director, Ford School of Management, New Delhi. Professor Umakant Das, Vice Chancellor, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune. Professor K.M. Baharul Islam, Director, IMD Hyderabad.
Can we please have a round of applause for our dignitaries?
Professor Arunaditya Sahai, Distinguished Professor, and Professor Deepak Kumar Srivastava, Director, IIM Ranchi, who will be joining us virtually for this panel discussion. May I now request Professor Mohua Banerjee, Chief Patron, 19th ISDSI Global Conference 2025 and Director, IMI Kolkata, to kindly join us on the stage to moderate this session.
I would now request Dr. Rohit Singh, Conference Chair, 19th ISDSI Global Conference, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate our panelists. Professor Varun Nagaraj. Professor Sangeeta Sahane. Can we please have a big round of applause? Professor Subir Verma. Professor Umakant Das. Professor K. Baharul Islam. Professor Mohua Banerjee. We also welcome Professor Deepak Kumar Srivastava, who kindly agreed to join us virtually. May I now request the dignitaries on the stage to please come forward for the group photograph. Here, I would like to mention that the detailed profiles of the members of this panel, as well as those of other panels and events of the 19th ISDSI Global Conference 2025, are available in our profiles of eminence and can be accessed through the ISDSI Global website and the QR code displayed on the screens right now. You are requested to scan the QR code now to access the profiles of eminence. Profiles of Eminence is a distinguished compilation of detailed profiles of our esteemed dignitaries. We now request Professor Mohua Banerjee to please steer the panel forward.
Thank you, Ayushi. Welcome back, panelists, and really looking forward to this discussion. A bit of an improvisation. So while I had sent out the questions in advance and we were looking at, a sequential foray into this topic, I have been given a very stringent and strict timeline. We need to break for lunch at 2. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is the topics that I had indicated in, among ourselves, I will bring it up all together to you. And because we all will have one go, and you can refer to your campuses, which aspects of those topics you would want to talk about, we will discuss them. Yes. So with this format, let me introduce today's topic. These schools as engines of India's net zero transition. So while we were talking about AI in the previous DP panel, we are talking about net zero transition, building leaders, knowledge and innovation for Vikasit Bharat 2047. So we are talking about empowering our youth and towards that end, how exactly are we prepared? What modalities do we have to offer them in our institutes, and building the entire ecosystem for them so that they can deliver in this transition, in this net zero world when they step out to join the industry? So that being the broad theme, few curated pointers that I would have. How are we addressing our core curriculum, for this transition? Some aspects have we brought in, can we bring in, so that they are better equipped as far as the domain knowledge, the functional aspect of it goes. If I'm talking next about faculty members, the most important pillar of institutes, research priorities that they have, their cross-institutional collaborations. So can the ecosystem be used to solve the decarbonization challenges that we talk about? That would be the next part. Partnerships perhaps with PSUs, MEs, or MSMEs, startups who are working, in this space. Can a B school partner with them so that apart from the theoretical or the case studies that students do in class, can they get some field trip based learning, real on ground learning experiences? That could be another aspect that we could talk about. And most importantly, we are talking of incubators, accelerators at this point of time in B schools. So can we design some kind of a tie-up with, say, climate tech ventures, the PV modules, the green hydrogen, and all of these spaces that we are talking about, so that our own incubators, accelerators can bring up something towards that end. And we could also talk about our own campus. As they say, before you change the world, start doing something from your own home. So our own institutions, campuses, are we looking anyhow at the net zero pathways, or even calculating our GHG emissions? So that way, how could we explore campuses being the first stepping stone? And in that case, would the students have access to some kind of data set? Could they hands-on be a part of this transformation year on year if we are looking at campuses? And finally, because we are HEIs, so what can we do for faculty development in this space? Yes, any faculty development. And we're also talking about incentivizing what we have for faculty research, etc. That would be a far-fetched policy level decision, but would that actually make any impact in this net zero transition if we're talking about some incentivization for work or research, or specifically something with reference to the ESG module? So these were the 6 basic bulleted points that I have brought to you. So I will first start with Professor Deepak Srivastava. Yes, thank you for joining us online, Professor Srivastav, and wonderful to have you with us in this forum. And because you are online, my question, I will ask you to answer the panel, please.
Thank you for inviting. There is a larger issue, how to bring sustainability into B school ecosystem, if I understand correctly. Essentially, there are 2 pathways, hardware and software. And these pathways are not mutually exclusive. The first, hardware, essentially talks about the sustainable campus, which has become kind of statutory requirement nowadays. And also in recent past, this ranking, sustainable campus ranking, has been launched. And so many this kind of buildings and equipments, resources, which can help to make a sustainable campus. So this is one part. The second part is software, which deals with the academic structure. And perhaps that would be the source of differentiation. Academic structure is having 2 components, research and teaching. So let me start with research. One doable thing is that whatever the research is produced by any B school, that can be linked with the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. And these SDGs are defined by United Nations. At the end of year, there can be kind of compilation of this research, and that can be presented or published by B school in the form of sustainable research done by faculty member or annual research report, whatever way, whatever the circumstances permit. Additionally, there can be a possibility to have translation of this research, which can be shared with different stakeholders, and that will help to have kind of stakeholder engagement. Now, what most important thing comes, how we bring this sustainability kind of the philosophy in teaching and training. The conventional way is to have some courses, which we call as sustainability courses, climate literacy, grand challenges, which I am sure most of the B schools do have. But that is not enough, because we need to bring sustainability in many courses, and mainly in core courses. One possible way out may be that in each course, the faculty can be requested, faculty can be sensitized. They can highlight few sessions where the sustainability dilemma can be talked about, can be discussed. Right. And conventionally, we have ethical dilemma. There are so many courses we talk about. If this decision is taken, what would be the ethical dilemma? The same manner, there can be sustainability dilemma. And depending on the faculty member, one course, one session or two sessions, that can be discussed. But there is a challenge. The challenge is that sustainability, when we teach, this is multidisciplinary, right? While the management is interdisciplinary. The multidisciplinary approach, you need to bring expertise from science, technology, engineering, economics, so many. And the teaching would be in the project mode, because there has to be a different treatment. Now we can take one advantage of AI. AI, the power of AI is the speed. There are so many things which can be visualized, can be demonstrated in classroom. And if we leverage this thing, so many new, this kind of a product or minimum viable product, that kind of a culture can be developed. To summarize this, we need to think about a hybrid model between business school and design school. The conventional mandate, the mandate of business school is to focus more on, how to optimize resources, capabilities, efficiency. While the design school, the philosophy is experimentation, newness, new ideas, and which supports more multidisciplinary approach. So we need to find a balance between design school and business school. And experimentation, multidisciplinary, this approach certainly is doable, and that can be experimented. I would like to limit myself here and available to respond if further any opportunity comes. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Srivastav. Nicely put that as a business school, we're looking at interdisciplinary functional domains. And here comes sustainability and ESG with all its multidisciplinary perspectives. So how do we blend the two? How do we ensure that one is getting incorporated in a proper sense as far as management education goes? Thank you, Professor Srivastav. And so I'll now move on to my offline, my physical panelists here. So, Professor Dash, first question now to you, please. How does your institute look at all of these aspects that we have outlined in today's discussion?
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to thank ISDI Global for giving me this opportunity, and IMI Kolkata for again having me here. So I think now, of course, when we talk about net zero or sustainability, is no longer a kind of things to discuss. This is something which is mandatory on all of us, and it's like when in academic we say publish or perish. Now you have to do or die, right? So that's the situation we have reached now. So if you ask me my experience again, my experience from IIT to IRMA to again Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. I think if I take my previous team at IRMA, when we are talking about net zero or sustainability, when we talk about teaching, I think one of the USP of the IRMA program was after the first term, the students were going and staying in the villages for 2 months. And literally they have to stay with the village, in a village, with the villagers. So as paying guest, not free of cost, so that you get an exposure, what kind of issues they face, and the ecosystem they live and the kind of decisions they make. So when they go to the villages and stay and study the ecosystem, one of the issue intentionally and consciously, we always ask them to inquire is the SDG goals, because that's again very much of the 17 SDG goals. Again, when we take the rural economy, 13 to 14 are directly relevant to the rural economy. So they, in the theme paper, they collect evidences. They see the kind of issues that they, particularly SDGs, they see, whether it is livelihood, whether it is literacy, whether it's hunger, whether it is health. So they take up a couple of issues and then they come back and make the presentation. So that's a exposure we got embedded into the program. Second thing, when we talk about research and teaching, again, always, of course, being a rural management institutions, we are very close to the rural and the issues, the social issues that we were confronted. It is somewhere in between social and the corporate. So that's where the image and positioning that we had maintained. So therefore, SDG was automatically coming towards, it was not imposed on us. And you talk to any faculty, they take the issues and the theories that we talk about, whether it is marketing or finance or strategy, always we see how it benefits the society and how it benefits the households. Because in the morning, Professor Vaskar was told, and Professor Maitri was also talking about the macro issues in sustainability and ICT. So here we were talking about the micro. So how the micro is getting affected because of the decisions that we have taken the macro level. So when we are talking about net zero by 2070 or generating 500 kilowatt of green energy by another 10, 15 years. So how that get translated? So how are we going to ensure because even today, 60, 70% of people stay in the rural area. And 60, 70% of livelihood is coming from there, and agriculture being the primary. That's where we have to see how it is going to be net zero, etc. That can get translated into. That's where we even through our entrepreneurship or incubation cell, we were trying to promote those social enterprises that they target about the SDGs, etc. So that even if it is not at the macro level, at the micro level, they can make their presence felt. So I think as an education institute, I think we have to lead the movement. It's not that we leave it to somebody else, because these are the young people who need to imbibe the principles, and it's not that they are doing any kind of injustice. They have to be, say, ethical, and they have to bother about the future. That's where I think teaching, research and publication, whatever we do. So we have to live and we have to make part of our day-to-day life. It's not just teaching one course or two courses or making 5%, 10% SDG will not resolve the problem. We have to make it a way of life. That's what we believe in. Thank you.
Very true. Very nicely said, Umakantji. The immersion program, it's a slice of life kind of an experience. So I really could relate to that. You take them to rural India, and rather than in classrooms tell them about SDG goals, you take them through the process, live the experience, and then come back and see what bit of it you can translate. And needless to say, I mean, you have to imbibe it as a culture. So I do get the point. One or two classes here, one or two classes there as a part of this would be a sort of tick box activity, if I'm not mincing my words out here. So how do we make that a part of an institute's culture? Because all said and done, it's no longer a fancy word. There are rankings, there are accreditations who are actually asking us how are we looking at sustainability? How much of solar power are we using to substitute our fossil energy? So these are hard questions that are being asked. So when we have to make the transition, do the flip once and for all, instead of ticking individual boxes and trying to make overall reporting structures look good. Next, I'll come to you, Varun. Your take on these aspects of sustainability in HEIs.
Thank you. About 5 minutes, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thanks. See, when you're looking at all of these fragmented approaches, it's good to have a unifying theme. But it's difficult in a university to say, this is what we all agree on, because there is plurality of thought, plurality of disciplines. So with that challenge in mind, we took it upon ourselves to try and come up with a unifying theme for SPJMR. And so now it eliminates a bunch of other things, of course, right? But it does focus us. So the phrase I want to share with you all is the idea of wise innovation. So if you go to the SPJMR site, you look at how, we talk about ourselves for the last 4 years. It's around the fact that we believe that we are trying to work at the interface of innovation and society. And we use the phrase wise innovation consistently to basically talk about the use of good judgment, because that's how we look at the word wisdom, is good judgment in the innovation process that results in net positive outcomes. So I will one-up you on your net zero and say we're really shooting for net positive and not just net zero, right? And how do you go about getting to net positive is essentially what we have tried to create as a unifying theme. So I want to share with you how that unifying theme has translated into teaching, research, and also our work with our incubator. In the case of teaching, we begin our entire 2-year journey with a course on innovation, which I teach personally, right? So innovation foundations, as we go through the process of innovation, what does it mean to be given my background, right? Somebody who's worked in the innovation space, what does it mean to create new ideas, bring it to market? And what does net positive mean? So right away in class number 2 or 3, when we're talking about the purpose of business is not to satisfy shareholders, a la Friedman, but if you took the Peter Drucker view of creating value, well, what does value mean? And value has 3 dimensions, which maps very nicely to the 3 Ps. So we spend a fair bit of time on trying to compare profit, planet, and people, which all have different dimensions. So how do you come up mathematically with a net positive? And the answer is you can't. It's a matter of judgment as to how you trade off economic outcomes versus social outcomes and planetary outcomes. And so grappling with that notion that as a business school student, there is no spreadsheet that will ever give you a net zero or a net positive answer because the units of measurement are so different from each other. We try and basically engage in discussions with cases there. So that's sort of our teaching thing, trying to sensitize them to the concept of net positive and how hard it is to actually drive net positive in the real world is kind of what we begin with in teaching. In the case of research, what we did was we took our corpus of the last 5 years, and I encourage any school to try this. We went through content analysis of all of our PRJs and case studies that we had written as a faculty group over the last 5 years, and to look for themes. And I was hoping, of course, because I didn't know what the answer would be, that a good portion of it would in fact be related to technology, societal impact, and so forth. And about 45% of it was. Right. That was great. Now, what I haven't done is what you said. I have not yet increased the incentive system for those things, which we could very easily do, right? So researchers are encouraged to look at this, so far not monetarily though. Also on the research side, we have a conference that we do every year, meaning it's only our 2nd year of the conference. I hope someday to get to the 19th edition. But in our 2nd edition of the conference, which is coming up in February, it's our conference called TACIT, Technology and Societal Impact. And the theme of this conference and every conference is more or less the same. This year, we're talking about co-creating pathways for net positive outcomes. And we're beginning with the fact that ESG has run its course, that ESG is essentially a measurement tool. It's being ESG washed by everybody. How does one move to this even harder concept called net positive? And what is the role of a company, customers, markets, and regulators to co-create ways to create net positive? A simple example might be the creation of moral markets. Moral markets are when a society is able to force a company to adopt certain attributes in as core requirements to play in the market, right? This is a way in which a community sector can actually drive companies to do the right thing. Consumers can force companies to do the right things and so on. So from a research point of view, that's what our conference is. It's a very different kind of conference. I encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to do visit with us on February 20th and 21st. On the incubator side, I was so pleased to see what you guys did with your 200 plus startups to come to the 9. So we done something similar, but we did it in a slightly different manner. So we run what's called the India Pitchathon. So we work with 10, 15 incubators and accelerators around the country, including the tier 2, tier 3 cities. And we run 10 editions for Pitchathon. And we have a sponsor that helps us do this thing. So we ran 10 Pitchathons last year, 700 applicants. From the 700 applicants, we had 35 come into campus for the finals. And then we had 9 winners, amazingly the same number as you. And the screening criteria for all 700 was a net positive scorecard. So not only did they look like in a classic venture capital sense for desirability, feasibility, and viability, we also added on what is the potential, if they succeed, what would the potential net positive score be? And that played as important a factor as the DFV scores, which is what a normal VC would use. So we now have these 9 folks, on campus, virtually and in real life. Our students are actually working with them on specific projects. So these 9 get all kinds of extra attention from us. And that's the way in which we have brought about the idea of sort of net positive into our entrepreneurial work as well. Thanks.
Wonderful to hear that, Varun. The AACSB mind keeps ticking, periodically. So one part of that is, out of your thought leadership areas, what percentage of research has been done in that particular area? So I was just hearing you out. 45% is good. And so this is also a note to self, because we are also now monitoring, we also have sustainability as one, entrepreneurship, and the other one is digital transformation.
AI can actually do your content analysis faster. I did it a year and a half ago without AI.
Sure. So some more inputs to incorporate next time we're in the exercise room. Wonderful to hear that, Varun. I'll move on to you, Subir. How about your thoughts on these topics with regards to Ford School of Management?
Thank you very much for bringing me here. The good thing is that I'm among my friends, and I've come back to IMI Kolkata after so many years, been part of the IMI system almost like 10 years back. So
welcome back. Very happy to have you here.
I'm sure it is for me too. I have a strange background now, man. I've heard people coming from the IITs and different systems. I'm a hardcore political scientist, right? I'm a social scientist. I would not look at, so as a social scientist, how will I ask these questions? Probably I'll ask these questions differently. One is, let's take a look at it. You are still searching for a technology for a net zero transition. Is the issue of technology or the issue of behavior and culture? Right? Even now, despite the fact that you have to transit to net zero by 2050, you have to change by at least 55% per year. We're changing by only 11% per year. We have all the technology to do so, but we are not doing it because it pays to be efficient, to be productive, and to use technology to fix technology or to fix problems created by technology. So welcome to the world of what I call technological determinism. That's the way we are. So my first question, therefore, my take is basically more ontological and philosophical, and where I would question the very notion of science that we are practicing in India and in the entire world, which is more positivist. If I link that to which means basic, when I look at positivism, it's about man's mastery over nature. Back home in the Indian knowledge system, whether it was Ramanujam, or it was J.C. Bose, or it was P.C. Ray, we followed a more constructivist, more semiotic notion of science, which believed that man, nature, and cosmos were all together. Now, if we pursue this notion of science, we have all the answers to the problems that has been created by technology and by this, I would say, a wrong notion of development. Remember, once upon a time, Indira Gandhi said, and very correctly, that pollution and the poverty is the biggest pollutant. Right now, I think technology has become the biggest contaminator. We heard people talking about AI. Have you thought about the consequences that the full-scale use of AI will have on the fossil fuel consumption? Even now, just in 2026, it's predicted that in America itself, the electricity bill is going to go up by at least 6%. That means a greater amount of consumption so far fossil fuel is concerned. What about the cooling that is required by the data centers? That will be taking, the entire bill will be more than what Belgium supports so far fresh water is concerned. Have we thought about it? So I would rather like people to probably take a pause and think over AI and think over that. Probably we need to have an answer that Professor Bharat Bhaskar so rightly posed. Today we have to go back to the world of MSME. MSME means appropriate technology, not only of the kind of what Schumacher thought about in 1961, but also what Gandhi thought about almost like 100 years before in his famous book on Hind Swaraj. I think that's where the answer is. So I would like all of you to think that the problem is not with the technology. The problem is with the behavior in our culture. And believe me, so long the system is the way it is, based upon the man's predatory nature, predatory qualities over nature and over market and over consumption. And if so long we do not change our production and consumption system, things are going to remain the same, the way it is. We will keep on discussing next year the same item once again. The second aspect that we talked about, I fully agree with Professor Alok Rai when he said, well, the purpose of a B school is to create decision makers. Well, I think as a Ford School of Management, what we are doing is making people understand that there are sustainable choices that they have to make whenever they have to choose a vendor, whenever they have to choose the procurement agencies, whenever they have to look at what they have to peddle as a marketer or as a product developer. So that is something that we are trying to teach. We are trying to make each and every student a more responsible as a leader. Now that's a compulsory course so far Ford School of Management is concerned. We have also created a Center on Sustainable Development where we are probably going to go beyond ESG. And but I must admit one thing. I'm not being very humble over here, but then it's a fact. While going through the question that you raised, right, I had to study a lot. Believe me, I mean, I felt so humble and so grateful to all of you for bringing me to this conference and asking me those questions, because it made me read a lot on net zero and what we are struggling at, right? And probably when I go back, I'll bring about those kind of things that you probably would like, and in fact, all of us would like a business school leader to bring about. In terms of our own vendor selection, maybe we can put one of the criteria on the basis of which we're going to select our vendor. I'm not very sure about the company that comes to the campus. That's a market that the students probably would not like to change, even if we would like them to change in terms of choices that they're going to make. But in terms of so far projects are concerned, believe me, I think Professor Harman correctly pointed out, we are not an IIT, we are not a public university, we are a B school. These projects that you talked about doesn't come to a B school. ICSR does not recognize us. We don't get any one of these kind of projects, even if we would like to get them, right? We apply and we fail because the mindset is more tuned towards IITs and IIMs and those public universities. So that's a sad aspect with regard to projects that we do not have, even if we would like to have. In terms of institutional change, well, we are in Delhi. We are part of the pollution problem over there, part of what do you call the heating of the earth, because we necessarily have to have that generator. We can't do without it. We have to drive a car, which is almost like 50 kilometers away from our home. That's the suffering that all of us have. Now, hopefully, if India develops, and hopefully, if India and all of us start thinking about the questions that we have raised, we probably will be having some of the answers to the problem. But believe me, so long we do not change the way we produce things, the way we consume things, and more important, the way we think about things, things are not going to change so much. So thank you very much for this.
Wonderfully said, Subir. You couldn't have summed it better. We can talk 9 to the dozen, but end of the day, it's mindset. What do we do when we go back? So I'll give you very simple examples. And as I said, a part of life, a slice of life kind of examples. So the last conference that we had this January on sustainability, and we were very particular, we will get glass bottles, do away with plastics. We cannot say zero plastic, but reduce plastics to the extent possible. I'm talking of, the January conference. And then we ordered mithai. And winter is that time of the year. If you are from this region, gur, nolen gur, and it goes into the sweetmeats and all the delicacies. So I had just asked my admin team, get Gore sweet delicacies for our guests. And guess what? When we were in for lunch, it's from a branded legacy sweetmeat shop, Boloram Molli, Radharam Molli. The first thing that we see, it's Nolan Gur souffle, but it comes in plastic. And so much, for, and Dr. Shende was with us, and the first thing he saw, I said, look at the gur, look at the, the sweet dish that is there, ignore the plastic. And he said, no, you are doing a conference on ICSBP, on sustainability practices, hold it and let me click a photograph. So, that is what we did. So we don't realize, the point that I'm trying to make is we have to take conscious efforts, attempts to discuss, talk, and put it in MOMs and make them SOPs out of it. But having said that, is it ingrained? Do we have it in our mindset, what to do, what not to do? Very good, very well said. Subir, another point that you mentioned about the questions, I'll very humbly come out with the truth. A fortnight back, there was this UN Global Compact Network India, and they had their conference, and they asked me to moderate. And when I looked at my panelists, that is when I started doing all the homework of the world. Vikram Solar, L&T Infrastructure, TVS Motors. I mean, each one of them stalwarts in their field. So the kind of homework that I did on each individual company thereafter to decide what questions should I be asking them, well, this time I was 50% prepared. So that helped. And yes, we are all peers learning in this process. So thank you very much, Subir, for your deliberations. So I'll move on to you now, Sangeeta. If you can please share your perspectives.
Is it working now? Yeah. Namaskar, and thank you so much for having me here. When I got the questions, and very rightly, as he said, I said so many of them, the first reaction. And when I did do some preparation, but this few minutes ago, when you said that you're not going to ask us all of these questions, so it was kind of a relief. But I'll start with something which Professor Maitre said, that we have to go back to our tradition and our heritage. And one thing which has always struck me is that our planet is something which we have been blessed with for a few number of years to be on, but we take it for granted. Each one of us thinks that this is ours, but this is not ours. Actually, we are here to enjoy it for a few number of years. And while we have to enjoy it, we cannot exploit it. But that's what we do every moment. We have always lived with this and heard of this and learned it in our classes, and Hindi and Sanskrit, all of us, those of you who read it, Vasudev Kutumbakam, right? One earth, one family, one future. And if you to look at a holistic well-being of this Mother Earth, our planet, we have to think of it forever. So people, planet, profit, we all talk of it, and Professor did speak of it. We talk of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We talk of 17 of these. But have we ever thought of having a program or having a curriculum which manages these 17 SDGs? I don't think any one of us has done it till now. And bringing it into our curriculum is something which is actually required. Bringing it module-wise, definitely required. I was just discussing this one day with some of my colleagues, and the person said, nobody does MBA today to learn. They just do it for a placement. And if we start bringing it into our curriculum, how many companies will actually go in to take them from us? I said, if it is about taking them from us, why is it that certain universities in the world are so very niche? So many universities in the world offer such niche courses, which are so very transdisciplinary, that they are in huge demand. And their students get placed in through job fairs. When I talk of transdisciplinarity, I talk of something which is very holistic. I talk of silos being broken away. I talk of knowledge, I talk of methods, I talk of approaches, I talk of actors. Absolutely a comprehensive, holistic approach, which thankfully institutes like IITs are able to deliver. But having said that, even many of our faculty, our students are not open to that. Why? Because as I said, it's all about a mindset that who's going to experiment with that. Today we talk of transdisciplinarity. Today when we talk of it, NEP talks of it. So many people are talking of it, breaking down silos, breaking down barriers, breaking down. What are we talking of? We are not talking of education as a job provider. We are talking of the pure concept of education, which is to solve problems that the society faces, that the world faces today in a more integrative way. And I think that is wherein this whole concept of sustainability is going to come in. Where on one hand, we talk of profits, we talk of growth, we talk of development, we talk of technology, but we also talk of preserving the well-being of our own selves, our society, and our planet. So how do we bring in it into our curriculum? The first thing that we have to talk of is that while we talk of us, like for example, I was just checking out of what typically relates to the conference and to the goals. 7 out of 17 goals purely relate to what I saw in your conference whatever I could see on the conference webpage. 7 out of 17 directly relate to the conference theme. And if we bring all of this into the curriculum, and because your first point said that climate literacy, net zero familiarization, what you sent to me in the email, bringing it into it, these concepts itself have to be embedded into our MBA curriculum. How do we start? We start in a small way by bringing in these concepts wherever we can into the core papers which we have. How prepared does our faculty do it? The faculty itself need to be trained and groomed. How will that happen? I keep receiving emails, and sadly, they say only open to assistant professors. Why not to associate and full? I don't understand. Okay. They said nominate assistant professors from your department, from your center school to attend this program. A lot of programs on sustainability are being offered by institutes like TERI, XLRI, National Institute of Disaster Management, and so forth, which are there. They are also open to research scholars and PhD students who are going to be our faculty in future. So such programs, I think, are there, which should be open. There are a lot of courses which are being offered by universities abroad, online courses, which I think institutes should encourage their faculty to do, so that that fervor comes in and it gradually comes into the DNA. And these cases, once we get familiarized with these concepts, they will gradually keep coming into our discussions in the classroom. And once they keep coming into the classroom, gradually it will come in. Sooner or later, faculty will start doing research in them. Sooner or later, they become a part of the curriculum. Once faculty is comfortable, they start coming in as elective courses. Sooner to be offered as elective courses, sooner to be offered as full-time specialization programs, to be made into full-fledged programs in sustainability and management, which, as I said, are very, very important today. Very importantly, again, as I said, when you're talking about transdisciplinary, this cannot happen alone. When you're talking on sustainability, because there is technology, and as Professor MP Gupta just said, being in IIT, and I can talk from that perspective because I've also spent majority of my career in IIT Kharagpur, you're trying to bring in technology, science, engineering, law, policy together. And fortunately, we have that ecosystem in IITs. Having said that, Professor Rai has just left. The IIMs and IITs and NITs together are also coming up with joint programs which can facilitate that. IMC is also offering a program with us and ISI. We have a Tri-Institute program. IMC is offering other programs like that with with IIT Kanpur also. So it's not something which, institutes of repute with private institutes or with institutes of eminence with top NIRF P schools cannot do with IITs or IIMs. MOUs can definitely be forged with IITs and IIMs. And sir, to say that such problems exist will not happen if there are good NIRF ranked private institutes. I'm sure hands can be joined with private and public institutes, IITs, IIMs, private B schools, good NIRF ranked institutes, at least to start with certificate diploma courses that can happen as long as MOUs between institutes can happen, bringing in that synergy to come up with such courses which can benefit the society at large. So I think that comes in, which also will happen in point number 3, where you talked about partnerships and you were talking about collaborations. Cross point 2, research of priorities and cross-institutional collaborations. I think that also comes in here. So I think somehow I clubbed point 1 and point 2. Curriculum, core concepts on sustainability, climate science, also bringing in that practical exposure to students, even concepts of green concepts, even coming up with, things like the green careers, which a lot of students are not aware of. All these issues need to be embedded in our curriculum so that they become more aware. Coming to point 2, which you said about research opportunities and cross-institutional have covered. Research priorities. Government gives a lot of opportunity today on sustainability. We have the Spark projects, we have the ANRF, the EV mission, for example, the GYAN courses, for example. There again, strongly encouraged cross-institutional collaborations. I think many of you know about these already. How can partnerships with industry? The 6-month internship, the industry is always keen. If most institutes can bring this up, AICT is also kind of encouraging that, because NAP says hands-on, experiential learning. So if that can be passed through the credit framework, that also leads to an opportunity for placements for the students. Because if you give them a 6-month long period, industry also understands, ye kaam ka bacha hai, pre-placement offers, etc., can be given. And students today want hands-on. They don't want learning in classrooms. And as Professor said earlier in the previous session, AI, the students today want everything through AI. They want minimal classroom teaching and learning. They feel what I can get through internet, I can get through internet. So they love to be engaged through other means, hands-on and through projects and term projects and field learning. I think what role can, fourth number, what role can institute incubators, etc. Herein the challenge is to create entrepreneurs. Most students don't want to become entrepreneurs. And that's what even our Prime Minister says, become job creators rather than. So we have at Kharagpur a course, which is a 2-credit course, learning business outside classroom. We call it LBOC. And it's a compulsory course that they have to learn business outside classroom. They have to go out and see how people in the local market are doing business. Okay. So that gives them a feel about how business is done by rural people who don't know how to manage even a diary. So kaise business karte hain wo? And recently we also had a workshop on how to create entrepreneurs. So that risk-taking ability has to be taught and inculcated. How can institutions own campuses? Start small, start today. Why should we have so many lights and fans running? Start today, start small, replicate. If you have success stories, flash them on social media, ask your students to flash it every now and then. You'll feel proud and it will spread. That's the only way how you can do it. Institute directors and deans cannot always do that for anybody. It has to happen through each one of us and our efforts on sustainability. And last point, I think I've taken too much time. Last point of yours was, I think, on the too many questions, Professor Banerjee, so I'm addressing each one of them.
One
faculty development.
Ravi, just before you start judging me, I had given one for each, please.
Faculty development, I already told you through FDPs. How can cross-institutional collaborations be structured to data sets through consortiums and collaborations, I said? And can internships, live projects? I also discussed this. So I think I've covered whatever I wanted to say.
You've covered beautifully, Sangeeta, all the points that
Thank you so much. I think I said more than I could have spoken. Thank you so much.
Really nice. The fallacy of B schools. if there are no placements, we are not interested. I mean, she made it sound better. I called a spade a spade. So what does that mean? I mean, as we have to collaborate more with industries, find out where the opportunities are, how are the organizations working in the sustainability space. Six, exactly. That will, be the icebreaker, identify opportunities so that we can bring forward placement opportunities on campus and thereafter build the space. It has to be in tandem. Otherwise, it will be the, egg first or chicken first. It has to be in tandem when we are building ecosystems. Thank you. Wonderfully said, Sangeeta. Bahadul, over to you, please. Your institute, your thoughts, your insights.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Pohua, for this opportunity. I will just give you the experiment I have done and what happened, and perhaps it indicates what you said. I fully agree, and actually, it reminds me of the tragedy of doing something new. Spending 10 years in United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in 2012, I returned to join an institute, and that's an Indian Institute, IIM Kashipur. And the director, sometimes they put you up on the staircase and then they leave. So he said, do something new, and I put in the first green MBA program. And he said, we are new IIM, so find your money. So I went to World Bank. I got 2.25 crores to launch that program. Ran it for 19 students, first batch, 19 students, and then that elephant in the room, placement, came in. And obviously, we could do it with various corporate sectors were appointing their first, energy auditors and all those places, TERI, CSI, Delhi, they helped. And not only the 19 students batch we run, I directed that program for 2 years, 19 first batch. But thing is that this program itself did not sustain. Why? Because one is that the students are still generalistic. So you don't find too many takers for this if you do not show very high potential of placement. That is one. Number two, it happens that we throughout the program we saw that it is a kind of mindset. Our students are going to be sustainable. Interestingly, my earlier institute, IIM Kashipur, was having this sustainable leadership as its vision. Leaders with sustainability in mind. But that has to be kind of mainstream across. And the only one other thing I find parallel, which we talk about, but the mentality does not transform, is gender. We talk about it, gender, but to mainstreaming the gender is a very difficult task. So the sustainability also, starting with the changing of the water bottle, we did 200 cement companies. We studied how much water they're sucking from our water, our natural resources, and how much they're planting it back. So we did that study and it got published in ABDC. That was the kind of benefit we got out of it. But to make it an impact on our graduates' mind, who will be leader in future, he will not be a decision maker very soon. Maybe to 10 years, 15 years down the line, he will be decision makers and retain this idea of sustainability, of carbon footprints. So that was a kind of bigger task and journey. So in the new position or new institute where I am to Hyderabad, we have Center for Sustainability and CSR. And now we are doing from mainstream research, we are trying to submerge them into, somebody said, immersion. So we are trying to, again, we are in the same stage with the ASSP, the ISR pass. So we have a second report to coming in this year. So one of the things they're insisting on is obviously the social impact, as you know. So I'm trying to divert our energy to the social impact where our students can actually mingle with the local communities. And some of these ideas they can pass on with regards to how for example, where the biggest plastic use is happening in the local kirana shop. Can you change the community, adopt something differently, which is more economical option? Can you do those market search? So this kind of the other thing I was just this morning I was talking about. We have next door to my institute is India's largest Amazon distribution hub. It's a 1.6 kilometer conveyor belt. with 1 lakh square feet area. So this is their biggest, distribution hub, supply chain hub there. So now the next step will be to get into that, and whether we can bring in those, you can say, sustainable supply chain. We used to call it green operations management, where a professor from IIM Calcutta used to go and teach us at this course in Kashipur. So now is the time to on two ways for me. One is to inculcate through programs, and for example, for my sustainability programs, we have a specific program which is called PGDM LSCM, Logistics and Supply Chain Management. So we have 30 students who are specifically geared for, and we run this course in collaboration with CII Institute of Logistics. So one thing we are sure that our students are interned in their member organization, and perhaps the placement is also happening. So this will survive, but I wanted them that whether these supply chain managers we are producing 30 and maybe next year 30 and we'll add on, whether they are sustainable supply chain managers. Do they change their packaging as Amazon is doing? Whether they will adopt those things. So perhaps the next step is to transmit those ideas and go to the nearest Amazon hub and see yourself, do the live project, how much of the packaging change is happening. And as someone is saying, and I completely agree with professors, my colleagues here, that our students would like to do more rather than reading books on sustainability. So in this way, from changing the mindset, and for mindset changing, not another book, but go and step into Amazon's supply chain and see how they are implementing, what new ideas you can give them. Go into the local shops and markets and see what alternatives you can provide to a poor seller who finds it most economical to buy 100 rupees those black plastic bags and give it to all customers, and creating in the environmental hazard. From those small immersion programs to bigger Amazon operations, to creating an idea within the students who are going to be logistics experts now, and then perhaps they will hopefully lead the industry 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, whether they can sustain the sustainability we are talking about now in 2025. When he will be a boss in 2035, I'm projecting, whether he will retain those things. Perhaps this is the dilemma I think the business school administrators are facing, from placement, connecting sustainability, whether it earns you a better salary and job, whether those questions are asked when recruitment companies are there, to whether the mindset is being changed, or it is just another kind of feather nowadays, doing Coursera courses and you do sustainability course, to implementing it as a kind of hands-on. And we say this journey, and at IMT Hyderabad, pedagogically we are moving, we are saying that the no is not enough. We should move from no to do. Whether we can transmit some of this sustainability, green footprints, lean manufacturing, all those things, can we transmit into doing? Whether that Bloom's taxonomy's top part, the evaluation and creation, can we do it while the lower bottom three stages are almost taken over by AI and machine learning, as we have seen in the first panel. So that is where our trajectory of travel, which is full of challenges, but I find that important, etc. And how the program died. The green MBA program sponsored by World Bank, and the second phase was supposed to be the same program, will be run in 32 universities across 8 SARC countries. The program died because the director changed. Oh. So that's the reality. Yes. That's the reality. Yes. That one says that no, don't spread my butter everywhere. We are a new IIM. Focus on PGDM. जब लखनऊ जैसा मोटा हो जाएंगे तब करना ये ग्रीन वन. अभी तुम PGDM को concentrate करो. No, nothing doing this side, that side. So, one fine morning, the whole idea changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baharul. Wonderfully summed up. It has to be about immersions through life projects, or working with kiranas, or getting into Amazon hubs. Unless it is hands-on, you live the experience, you learn more that way. So I was stretched for time right at the outset, but I think we have managed time wonderfully. So before we close, could we have just, in one single sentence, your thoughts, if you have to sum up on net zero in HEIs? One single sentence for each one of us out here. I'll start with you, Professor Srivastav. Your final notes, one sentence, HEIs, and how net zero is impacting, or the future of net zeros in HEIs.
I would like to limit myself again on the software part, academic structure part, and there has to be a fine balance between experimentation and the optimization, that is the conventional, and we need to bring more multidisciplinary approach, reasonable this thing, multidisciplinary, and that will open the doors for new experiments. And if you ask me one keyword, that is the experimentation.
Experimentation. Yes, you couldn't have summed it up better. I mean, this is the era that we are in. And if we have to move forward and make all these impacts, experimentation, find your own trajectories as you move ahead. Thank you, Professor Srivastav. Wonderful having you here with us, and really grateful for you to take time out and be here with us today, and even in an online mode for this panel. Thank you, Professor Srivastav. Coming to you, Umakant, your thoughts, your views.
I think we have to be responsive citizens. We have to train our PhD students to be responsive citizens.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. With responsibility will come the accountability, and what you do towards that. And noted, point noted. Yes, over to you, Varun.
I think you have to turn this idea of net positive into something that is practical and realistic in industry and for students. So I'm continuing my first sentence, right? The assumption is that this talk of net zero and net positive is stuff that, academics can talk about, others can talk about, and so forth. But in reality, when a student looks at a job, when a company looks at decisions like at Swiggy, what exactly should you do to optimize your fleet and so forth, all of these things go out the window. Yeah. So our job is to make sure that the idea of net zero, net positive is not one of preaching, but one of being able to show that it is practical in a messy, ugly sort of way to try and get towards it.
Yes, grounded in practicality. Yes, Subir, over to you.
I think mindset change at the level of students through social projects, make them more conscientious. At the level of faculty, in fact, that's what we have done by incentivizing research, and we are giving them around 25 points. Each point is equal to 4,000 rupees for a research done in the area of ESG and on sustainability. And third is in terms of institutional practices, where we are doing things and we need to change the way we are doing things. So mindset change for me is the biggest challenge.
Yes, so mindset. The next pointer out here, if you want to head for net zero HEIs, through all of these aspects, optimization, efficiency, experimentation, we also need to have the higher order understanding. It calls for a complete mindset change. Noted, Subir. Sangeeta.
Think holistic and preserve well-being of people, planet, and profit, balancing all together.
Yes, be equally responsible.
Absolutely.
For people, planets, and profits.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me, it is to allow the students to do some problem solving, either in the local community or in the local industry as far as possible. And once they have done this and do a kind of problem solving way rather than prescribing them, and then how do they use this for their recruitment interviews? How they tell their stories? So the first question, tell about yourself, tell about something, then they can tell this story.
Very true.
Instead of saying, my name is X, I did my 10+2 from Y and did my MBA from here. So instead of that storytelling, and perhaps this will be a longer story he will retain in his memory. And one day when he is Vice President Operations, he will take a green decision. That day will make my life. Thank you.
Our collective lives. easier. Yes, wonderful said. It's about, value addition. The value addition that you can do when, more for you students, when you are sitting across the table with the recruiters, narrate your own experiences of work that you have done in that space. Thank you. And with this, I will hand it over back to the to the students out here. And wonderful having all of you here with me today. Thank you for being in this panel and thank you for coming over to IMI Kolkata. Thank you, Professor Srivastava. We'll end this session now. Thank you for being with us.
We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished panelists for these insightful discussions. Thank you once again to our distinguished panelists for taking their time to share their knowledge and to our audience for your attention and enthusiasm.
We now request our conference patron, Professor Teethankar Nag, Dean Research, IMI Kolkata, to kindly present a token of gratitude to our distinguished panelists. Professor Varun Nagaraj. Professor Sangeeta Sane. Professor Subir Verma. Professor Umakant Das. Professor K.M. Baharul Islam. And our moderator, Professor Mohua Banerjee.
I think you want a second for photograph, right?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Deepak Kumar Srivastava for graciously taking the time to join us virtually for this session. May I now request the dignitaries on the stage to kindly come forward for a group photograph.
You can get up.